Hello. So here we are again with another attempt from id to revive its little dead on arrival franchise, Rage. To be fair, this is better than the first one, but if I'm being even more fucking fair, the first one wasn't all that good. Keep in mind, viewer, that I got it on the PS3 back in the day. The distinctly worst port of an already shoddily optimized game. I thought that at the time it was okay. I beat the whole game, it had solid gunplay, but overall it wasn't that fun. It felt very slow paced, and the movement didn't feel like it matched the gunplay. It almost felt like the gunplay and movement were made for two separate games with two very different ideas on pace and mind. While yes, the animations were impressive, the physics made things seem floaty and unresponsive, and I don't think that's worth good death animations. Driving, honestly here, it was pretty much about the same as it was last time, so not much change has occurred there. It also had less guns, but it had more ammo types, a la Fallout New Vegas, which essentially forced you into buying the secondary ammo because buying the original ammo is like flinging bogeys at your enemies, especially in the late game. A whole new art style, movement system, powers, and open world mechanics. So, this is a reboot then. Sorry to ask, but did it boot in the first place? Last time I checked, barely anyone remembered Rage was a franchise. But anyway, you move faster here and you have more guns, powers, and equipment. No more varying levels of bullets, thank fucking Christ. Half of which you won't even fucking use after the first couple attempts, because you realize shooting them once with the gun's bullet option is most effective. Though I do like the fucking around you can do with the grab dart gun. Although most of this stuff can lose its mileage pretty quick. The story. This part will be short. You gotta reunite the three Wasteland powers to fight back against the reemergence of the Authority. The problem with this is that all you do throughout the entire campaign is repeatable activities to increase a progress bar with each of the three main powers. This kind of reminds me of Far Cry 5, and ironically, New Dawn. The characters here, though, aren't as memorable. In fact, I don't remember any of them. Hell, what used to be impressive with the Doctor emoting years ago is now pedestrian in an industry that has God of War, Red Dead 2, and those two games came out last fucking year. In an industry with in-game cutscenes that can blow away even some real-life movies,
The gizmo you planted worked like a charm. Listen to this, straight off of Clayton's computer.
I am at my rope's end with you, Clayton. I have been more than patient. I have given you endless support, yet you have not delivered on your end.
does not impress. The story here will not grab you, and the story is not important here at all. The story is very simple. Go kill the baddie because the baddie is bad. It remains sort of a side point, so you can get to the action faster. While it does establish context quickly, I don't remember any of their fucking names, anyone who was involved at all. And you can see all these Wasteland bosses, the main characters of the game, or I guess the main cast of the game, only about 4 times with the whole fucking game. So they're not really that big of a presence here. Also, I'm not a fan of the protagonist. a generic violence-loving protagonist. So generic that you can change the gender and nothing would change save for the voice. I guess being this is an id game, the story would be light and straightforward, but fuck, hell, the Doom guy was more of a protagonist. He had more personality. He was angry. He was fucking vengeful. Look at the way he ripped demons apart. The main protagonist here really has no personality. And I know some people are a fan of that, but personally here, since the protagonist is already kind of set for you, it would have made sense for them to be, I don't know, characters. Story, dialogue, pathos, ethos, logos, that's all pussy shit right there. Get your fucking balls back on and get back into the shit, right? The driving's passable here. I had some fun chasing down some convoys. There are lots of fun to be had with the weapons on the vehicles, like the missiles, the mortars, and hell, even the 2 types of machine guns. But all that's pretty much wasted with the fucking quadcopter, which kills the points of cars largely if you want to get from one shooting area to the next. And if you don't like driving, it pretty much wipes out the driving for you, except that mutant bash TV thing, which feels like it's very forced, by the way, almost like it's trying to get you into the driving. And honestly, most of the cars in this game you can pass. The one you get at the beginning is the best. It has the best upgrades, the best weapons. Hell, the only thing stronger than it in pure firepower is the tank, and the tank is really fucking slow. It can't chase down convoys, so it's pretty much useless. Maybe the quadcopter was a thing they did for pacing, you know, so you could get from one area to the next without having to waste too much time, which I guess I appreciate, but at that point, why don't you either work on making the cars more important and more of a focal point, or just make levels? Just accept the fact that you guys cannot do driving very well, and just make levels, right? I don't like the way the cars drift in this game, especially the bike, which is prone to either over sliding or not sliding enough for me. Of course, the straight up gunplay is fun, just like last time, except I like it much more. Coming off Days Gone, though, regarding the vehicle gameplay, I was very disappointed about how the driving works, but like I said, the gunplay is great. In fact, I think that's really what held most priority here, the shooting, the moment-to-moment shooting, which seems like last time, in fact. Lots of good ideas here that are used up on the shooting areas and not really on the driving. The driving's rather generic overall in its execution. And forcing yourself to have fun with something seems counterintuitive, because granted, you could like the driving after enough time with it, but you're spending $65 on entertainment, right? So again, the driving is fine, but you could skip it. You could pretty much miss half the game. The game is half mediocre, right? But I do want to get to the movement, to the gunplay, because I love the movement here. The movement is fluid, it's responsive, it serves the gunplay well. In fact, honestly, I think the movement enhances the gunplay to a great degree, because you could dodge around, move around obstacles, jump up and down, use different kinds of powers in battle that could give you all types of advantages against your enemy. But there is one hiccup. The frame rate. On PS4, Doom runs at 60 FPS, while Rage 2 only runs at about 30. This is a problem because when you're running, dodging around, all while trying to stay on target, so much time went into the presentation of the game, they forgot to make everything perfect. They forgot to make the very core of this game perfect, and at times, you can notice that dip in frame rate. Because even when Doom dips, Doom only dips from 60 to something lower than 60, versus Rage where it dips from 30. And the problem with that is it makes the shooting feel off. It makes it feel kind of chuggy at times. Do a fog of war. Cut something maybe. Give us options in the graphics menu. I compare these two games because they're both id games. They play very similarly to each other, and they're both on the same hardware generations, because the on-foot gameplay here is incredible. It's addicting. Even for us console plebs, we've had 60 FPS games before. A higher frame rate would serve to enhance the fluidity of movement and shooting. I think the movement here is better than Doom. I think the gameplay is better than Doom at its core, on basis of mechanics alone. But Doom is way smoother to play. You can argue it's because it's open world, and true as you might be, it is famed for their great shooting, not for their driving, or hell, not even for their open world games. They fall behind other Bethesda-owned games. Beyond shooting, there isn't much to do. You can collect stuff, I guess, but this world feels empty, lifeless. Remember Fallout 4? Well, just to be completely candid, I liked Fallout 4. They should have cut back on the workshops, put more dialogue options in, but mechanically speaking, it's the best out of the Fallout games. The shooting is the best there. They need to take New Vegas' storytelling and add it to 4 and it would be perfect. Anyway, Fallout 4 had more activities, better stories, loot, leveling, basically everything that an open world game should have. And it did all of it better than Rage 2. And that doesn't make any sense because the devs of Doom helped the devs of Fallout with their shooting. So I don't understand why the devs of Fallout couldn't help the devs of Rage, or maybe they didn't take the help, or maybe because they were working with Avalanche. But I don't think Avalanche is as good at open world design as Fallout would have been, as the devs of Fallout would have been. The key difference between Fallout 4 and Rage 2 is that the world is alive. Shit happens to you. The AI do things with each other besides just battling over random patches of dirt, especially in the workshop areas. They have some form of routine, they act, and they emote. Rage 2 has overall better combat. Fallout 4 plays pretty damn similar, save for the dashing. As open world devs, they should have taken a few key points, characters, events, hell, maybe even taken the active town AI, the Radiant AI, because this feels like an in-between of those two games. Not as tight as Doom, not as sprawling as Fallout. Beyond the low frame rate and empty open world, the towns, like I said, they're empty as well. Everybody sort of just wanders and does basic stock animations, right? But I will give them one thing. The towns are unique. They feel unique. Different atmospheres, generally speaking, between the desert town and the swamp town, which I gotta give them credit for. But you will lose interest in these as you wander around because there's not much interactivity between the areas, right? Like I said, different colors, themes, locals, or at least the look of the locals.
Too good.
It will look good in the trailer, but once you try to dig deeper, you find there isn't much depth to any of these areas. Improvements. So, besides some of the things I just laid out, in among going to id Software to figure out the technicals behind getting that 60 FPS, and Bethesda Softworks for getting that, or Bethesda Gameworks for getting that open world design instead of fucking Avalanche. Make the towns more interactive, more talking AI, I guess, more conversations, or at the very least make them more interesting. Perhaps maybe defend these towns from attacks, actually see them get attacked, see the AI actually fight back. And this one's going to be a bit of a stretch, but stick with me. Being that you have superpowers, make some of the enemy variants have immunities. Think Shadow of War. Some bosses simply aren't hurt by certain attacks. It would actually call to use the other million guns in the game instead. Like the Grav Dart Launcher would be pretty damn useful on a shield guy, if assuming that shield guy's shield can't be ripped off by a vortex grenade, or by, you know, the shatter, or the ground to pound. You know, that'd be kind of cool. It wouldn't lose the power fantasy, because the grunts can still be killed by literal truckloads, especially when you're using fucking overdrive, which is fun, and it becomes a fuck up the annoying enemy button. And add new enemies that can only be defeated by that gun, or by that power, and also make these guns less of a 2 trigger pull type of thing to kill one person. And to be fair, some of these guns, when you pull the trigger twice, aren't even guaranteed to fucking die. I am looking at you, the revolver. The revolver sucks the worst of all. Out of all the guns in this game, that gun is the most pedestrian, and it's probably the least powerful gun in the whole fucking game. It sucks. Loosen up the drifting a little bit and make the driving a little, I guess, looser. The presentation's okay. I never had a problem with the presentation here. But I think it's worth reining it in a bit for performance and gameplay. Focus on a better story, something to motivate the player, get us interested in the world, because really nothing here makes you stand out. Even your identity isn't even yours anymore, isn't unique to you. This kind of neon pink thing was done by Far Cry New Dawn. And admittedly, I can't even believe I'm saying this, but New Dawn does it better in some areas. The presentation there is better. Here, the gameplay is better, of course, but really this is kind of just like a Fallout 4 to me. Like an overall world design. You know, the growing of the new world, the rebirth and all that crap. Anyway, your whole game is based around shooting, so that should be the thing that is focused on the most. But since you're also doing driving, that should feel like it's equal importance, because in these games it always feels like shooting gets a bit more attention, a bit more love than the driving does. So with all those things in mind, for me, I liked it. I had fun. I had to force myself to like the trucks and to like the vehicles, which, like I said, for $65 is a bit of a lot to ask. So I would say, you know, there wasn't much for me here. Right? I don't really feel too inclined to replay it. I mean, I'm trying to replay it right now because I lost my save data. And I want to see the events. But, you know, get more value. But really, this game's very grindy. I admit the grind here is probably the funnest version of grind you'll ever have. But don't get me wrong, wait for a sale. If Doom wasn't quite long enough for you and Fallout wasn't fast enough for you, maybe this would work. But there's something that I have to say. History is repeating itself again, because this is how the last Rage turned out. It was overshadowed by other games that came out around the same time or are in the same fucking genre and made by the same company, or at least under the same parent company. You know, id Software, Bethesda. You know. Which is Borderlands, which isn't made by Bethesda, but Borderlands overshadowed the original Rage, and now Borderlands is going to overshadow this one, and Fallout as well, and Doom. We have an example of id doing really well and making their own standards really fucking high. So they kind of dug their own grave here with their quality. So while its gunplay, gameplay is solid, its movement's great, both aren't very much, they're not interesting in the way they're utilized most of the time. There's really no platforming in this game to utilize the movement, for example. The guns are never used in any interesting puzzles. So the driving isn't going to blow anyone away either. Yeah, the driving's customizable, yes, it's upgradable, and it's better maybe than the one that the version of Rage 1 on the PS3 had. It has more depth by a long shot, but just like Rage 1, this feels like a good tech demo, right? The only difference now is that unlike the last fucking one, this one's actually on par. The PlayStation version of Rage is actually on par with the Xbox. Which, what the fuck, by the way? I know that's a very retro what the fuck, but what the fuck? Why did Rage 1 suck so much on on PS3? Anyway. The demo, by the way, the demo I'm talking about, it feels like a good demo for physics, gunplay, and driving, you know, to showcase all these things off. But they all could have had their own games, and on that comparison to Far Cry 5 and Fallout, I wonder about the replayability. A good story or an open-ended design, right? Because it had a similar structure to Far Cry 5 where you just do missions until the progress fills and missions happen. Yet there's more memorable characters in Far Cry 5. So because there were really no standout moments here, right? And while it can be approached in any order, in any way you want, it's pretty similar to Rage 2. But Rage 2 was kind of a blur for me, except its boss fights. Its boss fights are fantastic.
Security scanning not available. Nearby hospitals.
Except the end fight, which was essentially half of the cutscene monster from the beginning of the game. And you fight him on a 2D plane. And you fight a bunch of his minions that piss you off to no end. It feels like that really bad fight from the first Rage where you fight that monster in the building. Actually, very, very similar now that I'm thinking about it. Not even script, I just thought about it right fucking now. I do like the minor differences, by the way, on the enemies, like the sword guy or the shield guy, but the problem is that they all pretty much go down the same, and that is with a combination of shatter and bullets. So, I think the powers act as a bit of a crutch here, and they're a source of other issues. For example, they can be very overwhelming, and some of these enemies can be completely fucking arbitrary when you have 3 different variations of force push. But I think this game has too few original ideas, even with these cool superpowers and cool weapons in mind. It doesn't execute any of them particularly well. At least well enough to outshine its contemporaries, even its own contemporaries within its own company. Here, everything is sort of half baked in to fit a sandbox. You know, it's repeating history. This game had little presence before or after its launch. It did overall mediocre. It had a slew of technical issues that hold the game back. And yeah, while artistically it's okay, it's shockingly similar to Far Cry New Dawn. In fact, I thought New Dawn was going to be outshined by this game, but not really. Not at all. In fact, New Dawn looks pretty damn comparable now that I think about it. There are aspects of it that are better, like the weapon design. I do like the weapons in this game more than I do New Dawn, but the environments are pretty damn good in New Dawn. And it fails to find its place among a smorgasbord of post-apocalyptic games. Yeah, it's better than Rage 1 in every way, shooting, movement, hell, even in some ways the driving, but it needs something more. It needs to have a unique presence. So, I'm sorry to be so tough on it. Yeah, I like Rage. I played the first one as a kid. I played the first one when I was much younger, and I kind of liked it then. I kind of like this one, but the problem is that I can recognize that it's very mediocre. It doesn't do much. You know, it does everything okay. Not great, but okay. So, I would say get this game at $20, $30. Don't get it any more than that, folks. I hope you guys don't mind me being so negative. Don't worry. I'm going to do fucking Spider-Man for the next review, so I'm going to be happy and pumped as fuck. So, like, subscribe, comment, leave criticisms, do whatever you feel like you gotta do. Hope you enjoyed. See you next time.